the queen who wore a crown made of forgotten stars. In the farthest corner of the universe, where the light of the stars grew dim and time seemed to sleep, there existed a kingdom unlike any other. Lunareth, the kingdom of eternal night. The skies there shimmered with ancient constellations, and rivers of starlight flowed through valleys of crystal dust. It was a land both silent and beautiful, ruled by a queen whose very name was spoken with awe, Queen Seraphina of the Forgotten Stars. Seraphina was not born of royal blood. She came from the far edges of the cosmos, a wanderer who once followed the trail of dying stars. Her eyes glowed like twin moons, and her hair shimmered with silver strands that seemed to move like flowing light. Legends whispered that she had been chosen by the stars themselves to rule when the last queen fell into shadow. But the most mysterious thing about her was her crown, a crown forged not of gold or jewels, but of forgotten stars, pieces of light that had once shone brightly in the heavens and then faded from memory. Each star in her crown carried a memory, a dream, or a soul that had been lost to time. When she wore it, the faint whispers of those forgotten lights echoed around her, stories of worlds that once existed, lives that once burned with passion and pain. Her reign brought peace and wonder to Lunareth. The dark forests glowed again, and the sleeping lakes awoke to reflect constellations that no one had seen in centuries. Yet despite her wisdom and beauty, there was always a sadness in Seraphina's heart. She often stood on the highest tower of her crystal palace, staring into the endless sky, searching for something no one else could see. Long ago, before she became queen, Seraphina had been a seeker, one of the cosmic travelers who wandered between worlds, gathering the remnants of dying stars. She had walked through silent planets and ancient ruins, listening to the voices of forgotten civilizations. Among all the worlds she had visited, there was one she never spoke of, a world that had vanished into the dark, leaving only echoes behind. It was said that on that world, Seraphina had lost something, or someone very dear to her. Some believed it was her lover, a celestial guardian named Arion, who vanished during the collapse of a dying sun. Others said it was her own light, her reason to live, that faded that day. Whatever it was, it haunted her. On the night of her coronation, when the stars above Lunareth sang in harmony, Seraphina looked radiant. Her crown glowed softly, casting ripples of silver light across the hall. The people bowed to her, calling her the keeper of forgotten light, the one who would protect the lost and the broken. But as the music played and the universe seemed to celebrate her rise, Seraphina felt a faint tremor in her crown, as if one of the forgotten stars was trying to speak to her. She closed her eyes, and in the depths of her mind, a voice whispered, soft, distant, and sorrowful, "Seraphina, find me before the last light fades." Her heart froze. The voice was faint, like a dying echo, but she knew it at once. It was Arion. From that night onward, Seraphina's peace began to unravel. The kingdom still flourished under her rule, but she spent her nights searching the skies, tracing constellations with trembling fingers. She ordered her scholars to study the fading stars, her astronomers to map the shifting light. But none could find what she sought. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw fragments of a world falling apart, towers collapsing, oceans turning to glass, and a single hand reaching toward her, swallowed by light. And always, that same voice whispered through the crown she wore. The stars remember, even when the world forgets. One evening, as she walked through the garden of dying lights, a place where ancient stars were laid to rest, Seraphina felt a presence. The air shimmered, and a figure appeared before her, a cloaked being made entirely of faint light. Its voice was gentle, yet heavy with sorrow. "You are the crown of forgotten stars, my queen," it said. "But do you know the cost of remembering what the universe has chosen to forget?" Seraphina looked at it calmly. "If the universe forgets those who once shone, then it is my duty to remember them." The being tilted its head. "And if remembrance brings pain? If the stars you wear seek to return to their end?" "I would still bear it," she replied. "For even in sorrow, light deserves to live." The being studied her for a long moment, then slowly raised its hand. A single star drifted from her crown, glowing faintly in the air. It pulsed once, twice, and then burst into a vision, a glimpse of another realm. In that vision, Seraphina saw a distant void, a place where stars flickered and died, one after another. And there, in the middle of that darkness, she saw him, Arion, standing on the edge of a broken world, looking up as though waiting for her. When the vision faded, Seraphina's eyes filled with tears. "He's alive," she whispered, "somewhere beyond the veil of light." But the cloaked being shook its head. "He is not alive, my queen. He lingers, trapped between life and memory. If you seek him, you must journey beyond the stars, where even light dares not tread." Seraphina's voice trembled, yet her resolve was firm. "Then that is where I will go." The being's glow dimmed. "To seek what is lost, you must first surrender what is found. Will you abandon your kingdom to chase a ghost?" The Queen of Forgotten Stars looked up at the heavens, her crown gleaming with the sorrow of 1,000 memories. "If my light fades," she said softly, "then let the stars remember me." And thus began the tale of the queen who left her throne, guided only by the whisper of a lost soul and the fading light of her crown. She would travel across the broken constellations, face the guardians of the void, and uncover the truth of what it meant to love something that time itself had forgotten. But with each step she took away from Lunareth, one star in her crown dimmed, and somewhere in the shadows, unseen forces began to stir. The universe, it seemed, did not want her to remember. The night Seraphina left Lunareth was silent. No horns, no farewells, no echoes of her name in the air. Only the soft hum of the universe followed her, the whisper of ancient stars that flickered faintly above the horizon. She stood upon the balcony of her palace one last time, her long silver cloak fluttering in the cosmic wind, her eyes reflecting the boundless sky. She turned to her reflection in the crystal mirror. The crown of forgotten stars rested upon her brow, glowing faintly as if aware of her sorrow. "Forgive me, my people," she whispered, "but I cannot be your queen while a part of my soul still drifts in the dark." As dawn rose, a pale, silver dawn unlike any other, she mounted her starship Lyra, a vessel made from the bones of fallen comets. Its surface shimmered with constellations, and its heart was powered by starlight gathered from her crown. With a final glance at the kingdom she had saved, Seraphina set her course toward the edge of time, where light ceased to travel and memory dissolved into nothingness. For days, the queen sailed through the sea of dust and silence, where dying suns drifted like lanterns lost in the dark. The stars that once glittered so brightly now hung motionless, cold and ancient, their stories long ended. Each night, she lit the lanterns of her ship with fragments of her crown. Each fragment gave her visions, brief, sorrowful glimpses of forgotten worlds. One showed a planet made entirely of glass, shattered by its own reflection. Another revealed a garden of moons, their light slowly fading as they sang their last song. And one night, she saw Arion again, his form clearer now, standing in the ruins of a temple surrounded by broken constellations. He looked directly at her through the vision. His lips moved, and though she could not hear his words, she felt his plea in her heart. "Don't forget me." As the ship drifted deeper into the void, the starlight began to thin. It was there, in the endless black, that Seraphina encountered the keepers of the abyss, ghostly beings wrapped in shadows, guardians of the forgotten realms. They surrounded her ship like a storm of dark smoke, their voices echoing in unison. "Turn back, Queen of Light. The road ahead leads to unmaking." Seraphina stood at the bow, her crown glowing brighter than ever. "I seek the one who is lost beyond the stars," she said. "I seek the truth." The shadows shifted, whispering through the cold. "All truths demand a price. What will you offer?" Without hesitation, Seraphina lifted her hand. "Take a star from my crown." The shadows hesitated, then reached out. One of the glowing fragments from her crown broke free, spinning through the darkness until it dimmed and vanished. The shadows parted. "So be it. Follow the path of silence, and you shall find what the universe hides. For weeks, Seraphina traveled through the path of silence, a realm where even time forgot to move. There were no stars, no sounds, no echoes of existence. The only light was that of her crown, now dimmer than before. She began to feel the weight of her choices. Each star she gave away weakened her, and the memories of her life in Lunareth started to blur. The faces of her people, her palace, even her own voice, all began to fade. Yet the memory of Arion remained sharp, burning like a single flame in her heart. One night, when her strength was nearly gone, her ship stopped moving. The engines had fallen silent, their light consumed by the void. She stepped out onto the deck, her silver cloak trailing behind her like moonlight. In the stillness, she whispered, "If you can hear me, Arion, guide me." The moment those words left her lips, the crown pulsed, once, twice, and then one of the forgotten stars fell from it, floating before her. It flickered weakly, and then burst open like a window in space. Through it, she saw a realm filled with swirling mist and fragments of broken constellations. A faint melody drifted through, one she knew well. It was the Song of the Guardians, a hymn that Arion used to sing when they traveled together between worlds. Her heart leaped. She stepped into the light without hesitation. When she opened her eyes again, she stood in a place both beautiful and terrifying. The skies above were torn with cracks of light, and the ground beneath her feet shimmered with dust made of fallen stars. It was neither a world nor a dream. It was the sanctuary of the forgotten, where all lost lights gathered before vanishing forever. There were remnants of civilizations, fragments of old worlds, and countless souls wandering aimlessly, their forms made of fading light. They looked at Seraphina as she walked past, whispering her name in reverence and sorrow. "The Queen of the Forgotten has come. She wears our light. She remembers us still." Seraphina bowed her head to them. "You are not forgotten," she said softly. "As long as I breathe, your light remains." And for a moment, the lost souls glowed faintly again. Deeper within the sanctuary stood a great mirror, larger than any mountain, its surface rippling like liquid starlight. It was said to reflect what the heart desired most. Seraphina approached it slowly. As she looked into it, the reflection shifted, and there he was, Arion. He stood in a field of silver dust, his armor cracked, and his eyes filled with longing. "Seraphina," he whispered, his voice trembling with the echo of eternity. "You came." Tears streamed down her face. "I never stopped searching." She reached toward him, but her hand touched only glass. "You cannot cross," he said. "This realm binds me. I am part of what was forgotten. I am one of the stars in your crown." Seraphina's breath caught. "No, that cannot be." He smiled sadly. "When the world we once guarded fell, I gave my light to save yours. My soul became one of the stars you now wear. That is why you hear my voice." She stared at him, her heart breaking anew. "Then let me bring you back. Let me give my light to you." But Arion shook his head. "If you do that, the crown will die. The memories of every lost soul will fade. You will unmake what you vowed to protect." Seraphina fell to her knees, torn between love and duty. The mirror rippled again, showing her visions of Lunareth, her people praying under dim skies, the light of her crown growing fainter each day. "They still need you," Arion whispered. "You are their light now." Her tears fell like starlight. "And you are mine." The silence that followed was infinite. Then Arion placed his hand on the mirror, his eyes full of gentle warmth. "Remember me, Seraphina, not with sorrow, but with light." As his form began to fade, Seraphina pressed her hand against his, their fingertips almost touching through the veil. "I will," she whispered. "I will never forget." And with that, the mirror shattered, scattering into 1,000 fragments that rose into the sky, becoming new stars. Seraphina stood alone once more, her crown glowing brighter than it ever had before. The stars within it now shimmered with renewed life, the light of the souls she had vowed to remember. But one place on the crown remained empty, the space where Arion's light had once been. She looked up at the newborn stars above and smiled faintly through her tears. "Then let my crown shine for both of us." And with that, she turned back toward her ship, ready to return to Lunareth, to the kingdom that awaited her, carrying the light of all that was once forgotten. The journey back to Lunareth was slower than the one that had taken Queen Seraphina away. The path she had once followed through the sea of dust and silence now seemed heavier, filled with whispers that trailed after her ship like ghostly ribbons of sound. Each whisper carried a name, a story, or a memory of those whose lights she bore. Inside the starship Lyra, her reflection shone dimly on the glass as the crown glimmered faintly. It had changed. Where once the stars within it had flickered weakly, now they pulsed with renewed strength, each one beating like a living heart. But the crown's light had a strange quality now. It was alive, yes, but restless. The souls she had reawakened within it murmured constantly, their voices overlapping like an ocean of longing. They spoke of home, of forgotten sons, of peace they could not find. And in those voices, Seraphina sometimes heard his, Arion's softer, fading among the rest. "Do not forget me," the echo of his voice whispered. "I could never," she murmured back into the dark. When the Lyra finally reached the boundary of Lunareth's light, the kingdom appeared as she had left it, breathtaking and eternal. But the skies above were not as she remembered. Once bright with constellations, they now shimmered unevenly, as if something had disturbed their balance. The moment her ship descended upon the crystal towers of her palace, the people gathered below, awestruck, relieved, and trembling. For they had begun to believe their queen was lost forever. As Seraphina stepped down from her vessel, the air shimmered with reverence. Her crown burned with soft silver fire, lighting the courtyard brighter than any dawn. The people knelt and cried out, "Our queen has returned. The keeper of the stars has come home." Seraphina smiled gently, but her eyes were full of silence. She raised her hand for calm. "Rise, my people," she said softly. "I have returned, but not alone. I carry with me the light of all who were forgotten." The crowd bowed again, murmuring prayers of gratitude. Yet, among them, a few of her advisors exchanged uneasy glances. For though their queen looked the same, there was something in her gaze, a distant sadness that no mortal could name. That night, in the grand hall of mirrors, Seraphina stood before her throne. Her crown glowed faintly in the darkness, illuminating the chamber with a soft starlit mist. Her chief advisor, Lord Callan, approached her hesitantly. "My queen," he said quietly, "your return brings us joy beyond words. But we sense a change in the stars. The constellations above Lunareth shift strangely since your arrival. Some burn too brightly. Others vanish entirely." Seraphina looked up at the ceiling where the great dome of crystal displayed the sky beyond. Indeed, the stars seemed restless, pulsing with unnatural rhythm. "They are the souls I carry," she explained. "The forgotten lights now awaken within my crown. They remember what the universe chose to erase." Lord Callan bowed his head. "But, my queen, if they were meant to be forgotten, might not their awakening disturb the order of things?" For a long moment, Seraphina said nothing. Then she turned toward him, her voice quiet but steady. "Perhaps the order of things deserves to be disturbed. For too long, the universe has buried its sorrows beneath silence. I will not be part of that forgetting." Callan hesitated, but there was no arguing with the light in her eyes. He bowed deeply. "As you command, my queen." That night, when the kingdom slept, Seraphina wandered alone through the garden of dying lights. The silver flowers that bloomed there had once marked the resting places of fallen stars. Now, under her touch, they began to glow anew. The air shimmered softly, and the spirits of the garden began to appear, faint figures of light, bowing before their queen. "You remember us," they whispered in awe. "Always," Seraphina replied gently. "Your stories will not vanish while I live." But as she spoke, the air trembled. A voice unlike the others drifted through the garden, deeper, more sorrowful, yet commanding. Seraphina, she turned sharply. It was not Arion's voice, but something older, vast, and heavy with cosmic grief. From the darkness of the garden emerged a being of light and shadow, its form shifting constantly, as if the universe itself could not decide what it was. Its eyes shone with the light of entire galaxies. "Who are you?" Seraphina demanded, though her heart already knew. "I am Astrael," the being said, its voice echoing like the pulse of time. "I am the keeper of the balance. You have done what no mortal or starborn should do. You have broken the silence of oblivion." Seraphina raised her chin. "I have restored what was lost." Astrael's gaze dimmed, like a dying sun. "You have opened the door between memory and oblivion. The souls you carry were never meant to awaken. Their longing will consume you, and through you, all of Lunareth." The stars in her crown flickered, as if trembling. She could feel them stirring restlessly, whispering louder. "They are my people," she said firmly. "They deserve to live again." "Then you condemn yourself," Astrael said sorrowfully. "The light you cherish will devour the one who bears it. You cannot carry the weight of all who were lost." "I will bear it," she whispered. "For as long as I must." Astrael's voice softened. "Then remember this, Queen of Forgotten Stars. Even light, if held too tightly, turns into darkness." And with that, Astrael vanished, leaving behind a ripple of silence that lingered in the air. The following days grew strange in Lunareth. The stars above the kingdom grew brighter, too bright. Their light bled into the skies, turning nights into shimmering dawns. Rivers began to glow. Shadows disappeared. The people were in awe at first, calling it a miracle. But soon they realized the truth. The stars were burning themselves out. The more they shone, the faster they faded. Seraphina stood upon her balcony, watching the heavens tremble. The stars in her crown pulsed violently now, their voices louder, desperate. "We want to go home," they cried. "Set us free. We were never meant to linger." Seraphina gripped the railing, her knuckles white. She could feel the pain of each soul, their yearning to return to the void they had escaped. Yet to release them would mean losing all she had fought for, losing Arion's light forever. Her heart tore between love and duty once again. Then, as the sky above began to crackle with strange light, a single star fell from her crown, crashing into the horizon like a fragment of fire. The ground trembled, and a shockwave of starlight rippled through Lunareth. The people screamed. And for the first time since her return, Seraphina felt fear. In the distance, where the star had fallen, a rift had opened, a wound in the sky. From it poured streams of shadow and light twisted together, forming shapes that screamed like dying suns. Astrael's warning echoed in her mind. Even light, if held too tightly, turns into darkness. Seraphina touched her crown, which now burned hot against her skin. The souls within were crying, some in pain, others in anger. "I will not let you fade again," she whispered. "But I will find a way to free you without losing you." And as she said those words, a faint image of Arion flickered before her eyes, his face calm, his voice soft as ever. "To hold light, my love, you must first learn to let it go." Her tears glistened like starlight as she gazed upon the crack in the heavens. "Then I must go there," she said, "to the place where stars die and are born again." She turned to her guards, her cloak flowing like silver fire. "Prepare the lyra," she commanded. "The Queen of Forgotten Stars must journey once more, before the light devours us all." The sky of Lunareth burned like 1,000 suns the night Seraphina prepared to leave again. The once peaceful stars now screamed across the heavens, their voices echoing in the winds and through the crystal towers of the palace. The rift, the wound in the sky, had grown larger, spilling light and darkness across the horizon like ink in water. The people gathered below her balcony, fearful yet faithful, calling out her name as if their voices alone could keep her safe. "Do not go, my queen. Stay. The light will destroy you. Lunareth needs you." Seraphina looked down at them, her heart heavy. Her crown glowed fiercely, its stars flickering as if alive and afraid. She could feel the weight of their memories, their longing, their sorrow. "My people," she said, her voice carrying across the plaza, "this kingdom was born from the light of the stars, and so was I. If the stars are in pain, then so am I. I cannot rule a kingdom whose sky is dying." She paused, the light from the rift bathing her face in silver. "I will return," she said softly, "with peace for the stars, or not at all." And with that, she turned, her long cloak sweeping behind her like a comet's tail, and boarded the starship Lyra once more. As the Lyra rose into the trembling sky, the crown upon her head pulsed in rhythm with the rift ahead. Each beat sent waves of light through her veins, filling her with both power and pain. She could hear the whispers of the souls growing louder, restless and afraid. "We remember the void. The darkness calls us home. Release us." Seraphina pressed her hands to the sides of her head. "No," she whispered, trembling. "I will not lose you again." The ship broke through the upper layers of the atmosphere, into the sea of chaos where light and shadow fought endlessly. Ahead, the rift glowed, vast and terrible, its edges twisting like torn silk. She took a deep breath. "Arion," she whispered, "guide me." And with that, she plunged the Lyra into the rift. For a moment there was nothing. No sound, no light, only emptiness. Then, suddenly, the world around her exploded into a swirl of colors and motion. She had entered the heart of creation, the place where stars were born and where they returned when their time ended. Here, everything lived in a state of becoming. Flames of light folded into dust, and dust blossomed into suns. Yet among this beauty lay something darker, the remnant, the shadow that fed on forgotten light. Seraphina's ship trembled as waves of shadow energy lashed against it. The crown burned brighter, fighting against the darkness, but each burst of light drained her strength. Then, out of the swirling void, figures began to form, tall, shapeless beings with eyes like black holes. Their voices rose together, deep and endless. "Why have you come here, bearer of stolen light?" Seraphina stood, steady though her heart pounded. "I have come to end the suffering of the stars," she said. "They do not belong in pain." "You wear what is not yours," the shadows thundered. "The forgotten should remain forgotten. You tear open what time has sealed." "No," she cried, her crown blazing like a miniature sun. "They deserve remembrance." The shadows surged closer, their forms twisting with rage. The ship's shields flickered and failed. The Lyra shook violently, as if the universe itself was trying to throw her out. Seraphina fell to her knees, clutching her crown. The stars within screamed louder, their light flickering like dying flames. "Please," she whispered, "help me save you." Then, through the chaos, a calm voice pierced the noise. "Seraphina." Her heart froze. That voice, she would know it anywhere. She looked up, and there, emerging from the storm of shadow, was Arion. His form was faint, made of silver mist and light, but his eyes shone with the same warmth she remembered. "Arion," she breathed. "You're here?" He smiled softly. "I never left. I am part of the light you carry." She reached out a trembling hand. "Then help me. The stars are suffering. They want to go home, but I can't lose them. I can't lose you." Arion's expression was full of sorrow and love. "You cannot save them by holding on. You must let them go, Seraphina. Their home is not with you, it is with the universe. If I let them go, I lose you." He stepped closer, the light of his form flickering. "You never lose love, my queen. You only set it free." As he spoke, the shadows grew angrier. "Enough. The queen defies the balance. She must fall." Dark tendrils lashed toward her. Arion moved between her and the shadows, his light colliding with their darkness in a brilliant explosion. The Lyra cracked under the strain, alarms ringing through the ship. Seraphina screamed, clutching her crown. The stars within it pulsed wildly, their light fighting to escape. She heard Arion's voice again, fainter now. You are their queen, Seraphina, not their prison. Let them return. Let the crown break. Tears fell from her eyes, glowing as they touched her hands. If I break it, I break myself. Then you will become what you were always meant to be, he whispered. A light that cannot be forgotten. She looked at the crown, the stars flickering, crying, pleading. She closed her eyes and pressed her palms against it. Then go, she whispered. Be free. The crown shattered. A burst of pure starlight erupted from her, filling the entire rift. Every forgotten star soared outward, each one carrying a piece of her soul. They spiraled into the void like sparks from a dying flame, but instead of fading, they ignited new constellations, new beginnings. The shadows screamed as the light washed over them, dissolving their darkness. The rift began to close, its edges healing under the brilliance of rebirth. Seraphina fell to her knees, the remnants of her crown drifting away as dust. Her vision dimmed, her strength fading with every star that left her. Arion knelt beside her, his form now glowing brighter than ever. He cupped her face gently. You have done it, he said. You've given them back their home. And now, I must join them, mustn't I? She whispered. He smiled, his eyes full of peace. Not yet. The universe still remembers your name. You will return, but changed. The light around them grew blinding. The rift closed completely, and silence fell. When Seraphina awoke, she was lying in a field of silver grass under a quiet sky. The lyra was gone, and so was her crown. The stars above were calm once more, their light soft and steady. She stood slowly, touching her forehead where the crown once rested. In its place was a faint glow, a star-shaped mark, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The voices were gone. The pain had vanished. But she could still feel them, not as whispers, but as warmth in her soul. And when she looked up at the brightest star in the sky, she heard one last echo of Arion's voice. Wherever there is light, I will be there. A single tear slid down her cheek, glimmering like stardust. In that moment she understood. The crown had not been destroyed, it had been transformed. Its stars now lived freely across the heavens, yet their light remained within her. She was no longer just the queen of the forgotten. She was the queen of remembrance, the living bridge between light and shadow, between what was lost and what would never be forgotten again. And as she began her walk back toward Lunareth, the stars above followed her, like loyal sentinels, shining brighter than ever. The road home shimmered with silver light. Seraphina walked through the calm starlit plains where space met dream, a place between the living and the eternal. Every step left a faint glow behind her, as if the stars themselves guided her way. For the first time in what felt like ages, there was peace in her heart. The pain of loss, the ache of remembering, the endless noise of the crown, all had quieted into a soft melody that hummed gently in her soul. Yet even in peace, she could still feel the echo of the light she had set free. Whenever she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of the stars she had once carried, lives reborn, worlds rekindled, galaxies singing once again. And among them, she sometimes saw Arion, his smile faint but eternal, watching over her from the light of a distant sun. When Seraphina finally returned to Lunareth, the kingdom was silent under a new dawn. The once chaotic skies now gleamed with soft harmony. The stars no longer screamed or burned. They shone gently, each one steady and alive. The people had waited, fearful that their queen had perished. When they saw her walking toward the palace gates, cloaked in light, her hair gleaming with silver, her forehead marked by the soft glow of a living star, they fell to their knees, unable to speak. Lord Callan was the first to rise and approach her, tears glistening in his eyes. "My queen," he whispered, his voice trembling, "the heavens have calmed, the rift is gone." "What did you do?" Seraphina smiled faintly, her voice quiet but filled with warmth. "I remembered what the universe forgot, and then I let it go." She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "The stars no longer need me to hold their pain. They are free now, and through them, we are too. The people wept with joy, bowing before her. They had feared the end of the world, but instead, they found its renewal. That night, the queen stood once more upon her balcony, looking out over the land she had saved. The rivers sparkled like liquid starlight, and the mountains gleamed as if dusted with diamonds. The kingdom that had once trembled now breathed with life again. But she was changed. Without the crown, her light was softer, not blinding, but comforting. She was no longer a ruler made of distance and mystery. She was flesh and spirit intertwined, touched by sorrow but reborn in love. As the night deepened, she heard a faint sound carried by the wind, a familiar melody, the song of the guardians, the one Arion used to sing among the stars. She closed her eyes and let it wash over her. "Arion," she whispered softly, "I kept my promise. You are remembered, always." And for a brief moment, she felt his presence beside her, gentle, luminous, like the warmth of a sunbeam. "And you," his voice whispered back, faint and full of pride, "are the light that never fades." In the days that followed, Lunareth flourished in ways it never had before. The crops glowed faintly at night, absorbing the energy of the stars. The lakes reflected constellations even when clouds hid the sky. The people began to paint stories of light on their walls, honoring those who had once been forgotten. They called this new age the era of remembering, a time when light and shadow coexisted in harmony, when loss was no longer feared but cherished as proof of love's endurance. And in the heart of it all stood Seraphina, the queen who had once carried the stars. But the story did not end there. One night, years later, an apprentice astronomer named Lydon stood in the observatory at the edge of Lunareth. He was mapping the constellations when he noticed something strange. Among the familiar stars, a new pattern had appeared, one that looked like a crown. He rushed to the palace and found the queen alone in the garden, sitting beside a pool of mirrored water. Her hair now shone with threads of white, but her eyes were as bright as ever. "Your Majesty," Lydon said breathlessly, "there's a new constellation in the sky. It wasn't there before. It appeared tonight, shaped like a crown." Seraphina smiled softly, gazing up at the heavens. "Yes," she murmured. "It's not new. It was waiting for the right time to shine." Lydon frowned slightly, confused. "Does it have a name?" Seraphina looked at the constellation for a long moment. The stars twinkled, as if they recognized her gaze. "It is called Arion's light," she said finally. "It is a promise that love, even when forgotten, always finds its way home." The young astronomer bowed deeply, overwhelmed. "It's beautiful, my queen." She smiled, her gaze still fixed on the stars. "Yes," she whispered, "it is." That night, after the astronomer left, Seraphina sat quietly by the water's edge. The reflection of the new constellation shimmered across its surface, forming a faint halo around her. She reached up and touched the glowing mark on her forehead, the last remnant of the crown she once bore. "The forgotten stars are no longer forgotten," she said softly. "And I am finally at peace." The wind stirred gently, carrying with it a voice, not heard but felt. "You have always been the keeper of light, Seraphina. Not because you held it, but because you knew when to let it go." A tear, warm and golden, slid down her cheek. She looked once more to the sky, smiling through the soft shimmer of her tears. "Good night, Arion," she whispered. "Rest among the stars." The years passed, and the legend of the queen who wore a crown made of forgotten stars spread across galaxies. Travelers spoke of her name as if it were a prayer, a reminder that love and light, once kindled, could never truly fade. They said that when a soul was lost or when a star burned its final flame, a gentle glow would appear in the night, the queen's blessing, guiding it home. And so, the universe continued to remember her, not as a ruler, not as a savior, but as the heart that taught even the stars how to love again.